Hey guys, it's Keeley, and today I am going to be doing my May 2016 wrap-up. I definitely made up for the past few months because I read 13 books this month. They were all so amazing. I was just like in a reading mood, so I was just like reading like crazy, and it helps so much that I am on summer break now. So I'm just going to go ahead and get into the video so it's not too long. So yeah. The first book I read this month was Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. I don't have the copy right now because my mom is currently reading it so she can read it before the movie comes out. But yeah, that's the first book I read. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was so amazing. It definitely lived up to the hype for me. And I'm not going to talk too much about it because I did make a book talk about it, so I will link that down below and you can go watch it if you're interested. There is a non-spoilery section and then a spoilery section, and I let you know so you're not spoiled. So yeah, you can go and watch that if you want to know my full thoughts about it. The next book I read, I finally got to, and that is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. This was so good. The world was so interesting, and the magic system, it's not really magic, the small science system, I guess I can say. I really don't know how to explain it to you other than the fact that it follows these two characters, Alina and Mal, who grew up in an orphanage together, and they were orphans because their parents were killed in the Great War, and this character named the Black Heretic created this fold type thing, and it's just complete and utter darkness, and there's creatures in there that'll try to kill you, so it's very hard to cross the fold. And in this world there's people named the Grisha, and they have like special powers. Like, I don't know how to explain the powers, but yeah, they have special powers. And so basically there's just this big war trying to destroy the fold and get across it and things like that. And so the characters were amazing. The whole Grisha system was super cool, and I love Mal. Like, my love for Mal is crazy. I just loved him so much right off the bat. I just hit it off with him, basically. He is that character that all the girls loved, and so I was entranced by him too, I guess you could say. But Alina was also awesome, and I just really loved the Grisha system and this world, and I can't wait to read Six of Crows to get more in this world. But yeah, I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I finished in May, I've been reading since like January, and I finally finished it, and that is Beauty Queens by Libba Bray. I did not like this book at all. It was very unrealistic. I thought it was going to be like a really interesting, like contemporary, realistic sort of book, but no, it was very unrealistic. I could not tell what genre this was specifically. It just kept going in so many different directions that I was very confused by it. There was some like magical realism, there was some like, I don't know, like thriller. It was just in so many different ways. It was just very confusing, and I did not like it at all. It took me forever to read, and it's not very long, so I gave this one 1 out of 5 stars. Another book that I finally got around to finishing was Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the illustrated edition by J.K. Rowling, and the illustrations are done by Jim Kay. And this was such a refreshing way to read the story. This is my 3rd time reading this book, but my first time reading the illustrated edition, and they are so beautiful. I'm not going to flip through and show illustrations because if you haven't read it yet, I would rather keep it that way, because for me, I didn't want to see the illustrations before I read it. I just wanted to experience it as I read it, and it was just so beautiful, and I can't wait for the others to come out. But I cannot even imagine what Order of the Phoenix is going to look like, because these books are massive and they're just so heavy, so that one's going to be so heavy. But yeah, it was beautiful, and I definitely recommend this if you're a Harry Potter fan. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next thing I read, I just randomly got an urge to read it, and that is The Walking Dead Volume 1 Days Gone By Robert Kirkman and Tony Moore. And if you've been watching my channel, you know that I don't usually read comic books or graphic novels. This is only my 2nd one ever, but I love the Walking Dead series. So I was really interested to pick this up because I have heard that it is quite different, and some characters are in the show that aren't in the series. And so I read it and picked it up, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I still do like the TV show more, but this was still very enjoyable. It was just, there's already some changes in Volume 1, so that's really interesting to see. But if you're a fan of the show and you haven't read this yet, I would recommend it because it is quite good, and it goes by super fast. The next book I read, I continued on with the Grisha series, and that is Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. This one was equally as awesome, and it really left on a huge cliffhanger. I'm not going to describe it just because it is a sequel, so no spoilers, but I ended up giving this one 5 out of 5 stars as well, and I was just loving this series. The next book I read in the month of May was Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins. I finally finished my reread of The Hunger Games. This was my first time to reread them since they came out, which was years ago. It felt like such a lifetime. But since the movie series just ended, I wanted to go ahead and reread this world because I was not over it and I just did not want it to end. And I know some people have problems with the way Mockingjay ended, but I loved it. I love this series. Mind you, it was very, very sad and I did still cry, but it was just amazing, and I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars again, and I can't wait to reread them yet again in the future. The next book I read, I finished out the Grisha series with Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo. This one was just as good, and the ending just made me so happy, and it was just the perfect ending to the series. I really had no idea which way it was gonna go, but there is like one thing, the main thing in here I did guess at, and I was correct. So that was predictable, but yet I didn't care because I like being able to predict things. But yeah, I just liked it so very much, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars once again. This series was so good, and I'm so glad that I picked it up. And I actually get to meet Leigh Bardugo in October, so I'm very excited about that, especially since I just read her books, and I love them so much. The next book I read was The Fangirl's Guide to the Galaxy, a handbook for girl geeks by Sam Maggs. This one was very enjoyable, and it's so cute, and if you haven't seen the underneath cover, it's beautiful, and I absolutely love it. But yeah, it was very enjoyable. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars because there were some pages that I really wasn't interested in reading, so I skipped it over. But if you're interested in like cons and cosplay, then you'll definitely love this book. There are only certain aspects that really intrigued me and I was really interested in, and that's why I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, but I still enjoyed it nonetheless. The next book I read was The Storm by Virginia Burgin, and let me just show off this cover real quick. It is absolutely beautiful, and it has like little holes in the cover, and it's just really cool. And then you flip underneath and it has raindrops, and they're like words and quotes from the story, so that's just very cool. But this is the second book in the H2O series. H2O is the American title and The Rain is the UK title, and it's so good. It's about one day this rain just comes down and it starts killing people, and they find out there's a bacteria in this rain, so you can't drink water, you can't take showers, go to the bathroom. It is the apocalypse, and it's just awful. You cannot be outside when it rains, and so this is the sequel, so I'm not going to explain what it's about just because spoilers once again, but I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. I did not enjoy it as much as the first one, but I still enjoyed it, and it was very good. I think this was the finale, so I think it's only a duology because the way it ended was just like precise and crisp, and so I think that's it. And so it's really interesting, an apocalypse duology, which I have never seen before, so that was really cool. The next book I read was The Last Star by Rick Yancey. This is the third and final book in the Fifth Wave trilogy, and it was my least favorite, but I still enjoyed it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It just took a different twist than I was hoping it would go, but the ending was amazing, and that's why I liked it, is because the ending was just good, and it made up for the direction that it went when I didn't want it to go that direction. But I loved the Fifth Wave. It was my favorite, but I'm so sad the series is over. It is so good, and I definitely recommend it. If you don't know, it's about one day this alien spaceship just appears in the sky, and the apocalypse basically comes in waves, and it's just very interesting how it's told. And I just love the format. I love Rick Yancey's writing. So yeah, I definitely recommend it. The next book I read was actually a reread, but the first time I read it was in 4th grade, so that was 10 years ago, and that is Holes by Louis Satcher. This is about a boy who gets wrongly committed of a crime. He was basically in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it looks like he stole a famous athlete's pair of shoes. So he has the option to either go to jail or to go to a juvenile correctional summer camp at Camp Green Lake. Now, Camp Green Lake used to be it used to be a lake over 100 years ago, but now that at this camp it's completely dry. Each day the boys have to dig one hole, and it has to be 5 feet across, 5 feet deep, which is gruesome and awful, and it's in the Texas heat. That's one thing I didn't know across my reread. I discovered that it's in Texas, which is where I live, so that was very, very cool. I love this book once again. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and I just definitely recommend you read this. This was a childhood favorite of mine, so I was very excited to reread it. And the last book I read in the month of May, I literally just finished, and that is Small Steps by Louis Satcher. This is the sequel to Holes, and I had no idea there was a sequel until about a year ago. I saw it on like Amazon, and so I picked this one up recently, and I finally read it, and it was really good. I did not like it as much as Holes. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, but at the end it did have me tearing up. So I really liked the ending, but it was definitely a whole lot different than Holes. It follows one of the characters that is in Holes named Armpit, and it's a few years after he got back from Camp Green Lake, so it's him trying to figure out his life, trying to be a reformed person and not to be a criminal anymore, and he is trying to take small steps instead of big steps and like just getting swept up in the current. And one day he ends up getting involved in something he probably shouldn't, and so he's really trying to turn his life around, but it's really, really good, and it has a lot of heavy topics in it. It is definitely not a children's book like Holes was, but this talks about racism and just all certain kinds of things like that. There's also a topic of disability in it, so it was very, very good, and I definitely enjoyed it. So these are the books that I read in the month of May. I really, really liked them. Let me know if you've read any of these and if you liked them as well. And let me know what your favorite book of the month of May was. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!